We're already pretty good ways into One World Under Doom. There's no buzz. Nobody's talking about it. It should be the biggest thing in the entire comic book industry. And at this point, I don't even know what a major comic book event is supposed to be anymore. Is it just a reason to a bunch of miniseries for creators no one's ever heard of? Is it just supposed to be a reason to maybe do variant covers? We're not even seeing it bleeding into all the major comic books at this point at Marvel Comics, even though Doom literally controls the entire world. What is the point?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point is they need an event. I don't know. It irritates me to kind of no end because I do, for long-term viewers of my show, I loved the John Byrne Fantastic Four. I love Doctor Doom as a villain. I think it's a character where you have played a little bit with some of the sympathetic origins, but he still remained a thoroughly villainous villain. I mean, he's an irredeemable character. And so the idea of an event with this guy on top that takes over the planet and has the power to do so and's got the heroes back on their heels and everything else, to me, it's a really exciting event. Now, the challenge is it feels increasingly, and that this event was planned before the election, but a lot of it was written, obviously, post-election. It feels like it's changed from, hey, what happens if a sociopathic villain takes over the planet and has the power to back it up and puts everybody under this crazy rule and the heroes have to kind of figure out how to deal with it, sort of like what we had with Bendis and Dark Reign. Instead, it's become a Trump allegory in a lot of ways. And it's You
saw that too? In the last issue, I was like, this last subtle. Issue is all about voters who voted the way that they didn't like.
Yeah, no, it's not subtle at all. But it's the most boring thing you could do with Doom. Like, whether you love Trump or hate Trump, what do you want? Why do we need Doom as a Trump allegory? For God's sake, you don't. It's just if you support Doom, it's insulting. If you support Trump, if you support Trump, it's insulting. If you hate Trump, then you're just getting more of this. Like, why would you do this? And it screws up a perfectly good event.
Well, and Doom speaks for himself. He doesn't need to be an allegory for Trump. He is Doom.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know. I don't. The title was in trouble, I think, from the start. And I was talking to a comic writer who's like, Perch, you're being too negative about this Doom stuff. So I was saying, hey, there's absolutely zero buzz or heat on this at all. And he writes me and goes, you're being way too negative. It will pick up, once the event gets going. And he writes me a few minutes later going, oh my God, it comes out next week. I had no idea.
They forgot to lead up to it.
Yeah. There's nothing.
They wasted 6 months between Blood Hunt and Doom to set up the event in the page of the Fantastic Four instead of Johnny's off like fucking bugs.
No, it's yeah, exactly. It's so strange, I don't know. The whole thing bugs me immensely because I think this was money. It was really obvious money. You didn't have to get into a bunch of morally gray stuff with Doom. He's a villain. Let him be a villain.
Am I supposed to feel like he's a bad guy because he wants to take out vampires?
Yeah,
I want to take out vampires. They're monsters.
All of it is super weird.
They're illegal aliens now.
That's right. There's your other Trump allegory. We got to send them to El Salvador. All the vampires down to South America.
It's the strangest thing because the event used to be something. Once it really came into vogue, with Crisis on Infinite Earths, certainly Marvel with Secret Wars, continuing all the way through like Civil War and even Blackest Night. It was must-read comic books. Yeah, and it would drive an entire season.
Yeah, and so much that it was a problem because you had the comic companies struggling what to do in the core titles that they need to sell month in and month out, and so you'd save the events for the big action, the big moments in the events, and they went through that problem as well, like with Civil War and some of those, and. Now we're in the worst of both worlds where in the regular main titles, very little is happening and the events are kind of DOA. The events at their very coldest, they're meant to sell spin-off titles and meant to not just sell the event, but a bunch of things surrounding it, like a halo.
Put new eyes on product.
Right. That's right. And look, you look at Civil War as an example, that thing did an amazing job of selling books beyond Civil War. All the other things. I remember the Brian Wood Miss Marvel at the time had the sales jump significantly during Civil War. And that was a successful event. nobody's buying these other titles. I think if I held a gun to the head of even people like yourself and said, okay, name me 8 of the Doom spinoff titles right now really quickly, could you do it? I like it.
But I could. I'm kind of liking Red Hulk, but that's the only one, and it has nothing to do with One World Under Doom.
Sure,
I can tell.
A lot of them don't. It's just hard. I mean, it should be really easy for you, and it should. These things should matter. But the biggest amount of press and story that I've seen is that Doom's son Christoph from another dimension is kissing
Killmonger.
Yeah. That's the biggest. I mean, like if I go to Newsarama as just an example, the only story they have on One World Under Doom is Christoph and Killmonger in a romance. That's it.
Yeah.
Why?
This feels like the event is over. And, I know you're a huge X-Men fan, but the X-Over, the classic X-Over, where you would just have like a 6 or 9 issue event that would happen in 3 titles. Those are some of the greatest comic book stories of all time, some of the greatest X-Men stories of all time. We can't even get that anymore.
Well, yeah, some of them. Yeah, absolutely. I think it is funny how the world has gone, because I was not the biggest fan of like Executioner Song and some of the ones that people talk about. I love the Mutant Massacre. I like Fall of Mutants. I liked Inferno. I like those events a lot. And so some of the ones that came a little bit later, I was not as fond of. But man, those are the best stories in the world compared to today. Like you would take that all day long. Yeah,
absolutely. With a lot of these like modern bigger events, did you read Axe Judgment Day?
Oh yeah.
We had like Celestial showing up. He's judging all the heroes. You're guilty, dying. You're spared, and all this stuff. And at the end, I don't remember who did it. It might have been Tony Stark, because I think he took over like and made a celestial body into an Iron Man armor or something.
Yeah,
I can't remember all the details. But then he's like, "You're being mean, judging all these people. The Earth is about love, man." And then the Celestial's like, "You know what? You're right," and undid every single thing of consequence in the event, and then wrapped it up.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean,
not a single major fallout of the event.
No, the event, the first Matt Fraction event, where you had the kind of hammers from Asgard, and this was following. As I recall, you had Civil War, and then you had Secret Invasion. You had the Dark Reign stuff, and then you had this first kind of big event that Matt Fraction did, and it got a lot of complaints because in this comic, I think in the second issue or so, they killed Bucky, who was Captain America at the time. They stabbed him as a way to get Steve Rogers back into the suit. And then they undid it in the aftermath. You also had Iron Man, I think, in Paris, and Grey Gargoyle had turned everyone into statues and just murdered millions of people, and you undid that. And there's a lot of complaints at the time of this event, of just how it was inconsequential, and it just undid everything. But that's the norm now. You have very, very few side effects. I think, you make Miles Morales into a vampire, that's somewhat lasting change, but even there, it's being undone. I mean, there's no big consequences in these events anymore. And by contrast, you go back to like some of the ones I mentioned earlier, Inferno, you had deaths, you had all kinds of shit going on at that one. You have the Mutant Massacre. I mean, that took Colossus and kind of major characters off the map for years. I mean, that was a big moment, and events are meant to be that. They're meant to be events.
I don't think so anymore. It's like, you remember Hellfire Gala, right?
Yes, I'm. How could I? It
becomes an annual event during Jordan White's tenure. Now it's going to come back as a one shot or whatever. But if you read the story behind that, Jerry Duggan was going to make an issue called the Hellfire Gala, which was, tying into something Claremont did, I think, in 6 pages, like 30, 40 years ago.
Sure.
And Jordan White turned it into an event just because he needed one.
I mean, that's right. It went from a Hickman Duggan one shot into every title crossed over for this party. But again, and nobody's going to agree with this in your comments. Those are the good old days still. I mean, compare that to Avengers, X-Men, Eternals, that Axe event. I mean, compare it to what we're seeing right now with Doom. As painful as it sounds coming out of my mouth, the Hellfire Gala was more consequential and more restrained than this Doom event, which seems somehow impossibly dumber and with less consequence than the Hellfire
But
Gala.
the Hellfire Gala featured Jordan White being acknowledged in the comic book as one of the guests.
Yeah, I mean, it had Eminem in there and everything else. By the way, so readers know,
all those people cross-dressing.
Nobody here should be under any illusions. That comic was awful. I'm not putting.
Seems
I'm
like
not
you like it.
Somehow, Doom feels dumber and of less consequence in the Hellfire Gala. Contemplate that.
Yeah, it'll probably. I think. Yeah, One World Under Doom probably ages worse because it's not about the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. No, I mean, I mark my words. There will be more long-lasting things coming out of the Hellfire Gala than One World Under Doom.
But I think DC has actually had a worse event than One World Under Doom. Remember when they did? What was that? Night Terrors or Nightmares?
Sure, yeah, right? Nightmares, yeah.
They just shut down their entire line for 2 months.
Yeah, when it was getting some traction. Yeah, that was.
People were like, it's Superman. They're like, this Green Lantern's good. You know, I kind of like what Josh Williamson's doing on Green Arrow. We're getting a rejuvenation. They're like, halt.
Yeah. No, it's bizarre, these decisions. I made this comment over my channel, and again, I had a lot of agreement, but it hurt people to hear it. The Jordan White Krakoa era of X-Men was so much better than the Tom Brevoort era of X-Men, and Jordan White has proven himself to be a significantly better editor. I love your tortured face right now. See, that's what's happening to all the people listening.
So here's my thing. I wish I could dispute you, but
yeah,
there hasn't been one issue of anything that was good as any of the 12 issues of Hellions, which is like 18 issues. I like Cable Love and Chrome. It's one of the better books out there. I like Weapon X-Men, but they've already kind of cut it down. But all the major titles, X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, Wolverine, they're all terrible. Jonathan Hickman at least had those Children of the Vault stories in X-Men that were really good.
Sure. Yeah, you had the early runs of Ben Percy's X-Force was reviewed well. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Wolverine and X-Force were fine for the first 9-12 months, something like that.
Yeah, and by the way, if you want to go back and hold that up against kind of the Jim Shooter era of the titles, the Krakoa era looks terrible compared to that. But this is the monkey.
So you're ready to go back?
Oh, I mean, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to that. But I'm just saying it's amazing how, I mean, and I was on your channel and on the show on Saturday and everything else, and we were talking about how stupid a lot of the Jordan White era was, and now look what you got. And the reality is, okay, so let's hold up some of the books, the Jean Grey, the Phoenix book, the Dazzler book, some of the other titles that are out right now. And if you really want to have a bad night, compare it against Vita Ayala's New Mutants and tell me which one's better.
Children of the Atom was really bad, though.
It was. That's true.
Did you read X Manhunt, the first event?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's not good.
It was weird. So I was trying to read through it, but I missed one issue. And when I was reading the next chapter, I went from chapter 2 to 4, and I swear to God, it wasn't the same story. No,
there was seemingly no coordination, which gets back to Brevoort's a much worse editor. It's sad to say. Sorry, we changed the whole video topic around, but
it's all good.
But this is the crazy part. This will generate a lot of comments, I think. If you're honest with yourself, the Jordan White era of X-Men is better than the Brevoort era of X-Men. All of this really does kind of sum up where we are with things like One World Under Doom and other events of Marvel. There's a lot of things that were pretty terrible that we were complaining about 10 years ago that look like, infinitely better now. Still not good. You don't go from terrible to bad, but wow, what an indication of where we've come.
Yeah, I remember getting to that last chapter of X Manhunt, talking about the big event, and Charles and Lilandra do this big ruse so they can escape, and they leave, and then Charles is like, I got to go back. And they just pulled a U-turn, even though all these mutants are trying to kill him, and nothing. They usually oh, we're sorry to see you leave, Charles, even though we were trying to murder you as you were leaving.
Yeah, make it make sense. Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is this?
No, it's crazy. But I mean, look, one world under Doom. There's zero reason why that comic should be struggling right now. Zero. And
is there a reason to restart and reboot Fantastic Four during the event that should be bumping sales on Fantastic Four at issue 30?
No, not at all. That is nothing more than an indication of we have a movie coming out. We want to have a new number one on the stand for whatever reason we think that will matter. So,
and it's not going to be associated with the Doctor Doom event, which is their number one villain.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
Bad timing, I guess.
Make it make sense.
Yeah. I don't even think they get sales bumps out of this stuff anymore.
No, they very clearly do not.
Like even the side titles, like a Doom Academy, was it Doom's Avengers or is it Superior Avengers, Doom Strike Force or whatever? See, I remember some of those titles, like they all debut outside of like the top 60 with the information that we do have.
Yeah, no, they're not doing well. They're filling the line. It's part of meeting the 80 titles or so quota. It's none of it's healthy. And we've talked about it in a previous video, but look, there are some good comics out there. There's some events going on. If you're a comic fan, I believe actually you have more that you're enjoying reading right now than 4 years ago. But some of these bigger swings, some of these bigger events are so much worse. And what the company is choosing to focus on and how they're running their business is so much worse. And it's
DC is like miles better than Marvel right now, but Absolute Power wasn't good.
No, it wasn't. I mean, the events, I think overall, I think the companies have lost their way with events. I don't think they know what they're supposed to do anymore. They're not fulfilling kind of the reason why they're built and meant to happen. And I don't know. That's probably a major problem in the companies, because that is a way historically they've made a lot of their money.
So let's say Marvel and DC pool the resources, or like, we've got to get this event thing under wraps. We're having the exact same problem. We need an outside consultant. They pool together enough money to entice Perch, back into the comic sphere to be a consultant on how to fix their events. Like, what do you think the strategy should be to actually get people to buy in and believe that events are important again?
I mean, honestly, the biggest thing is you have to make them matter. You just have to have things that happen inside of them that last. The event should be like a summer blockbuster movie. It should be, if all the events of all the comics you're doing where people are talking or just doing nonsense things, the events should be nonstop superhero action. It should have big consequences. Whatever you decide in that event needs to stay and hold for at least 5 years after. It needs to have at least some level of lasting consequence. And the other thing I would do if you're trying to boost up this business is I would intentionally price the events cheap. I would go in and say, we're going to take the events at a loss. All the other tie-in books, normal pricing, whatever you got to do. But the core event book, the 8 issues, we're going to put that one out at $2.99, and we're going to just encourage every single person who comes in the shop to buy this. And we're going to fill it with so much action and so much subplots and teasing for kind of future things we're going to do. Make it feel like it really matters. That if you do miss it, you're missing out on the next 10 years of comics. That's what the event should be. And I think it's lots of people can do that. The other thing I would probably do is I would go out and I would find a writer who, is really good at kind of episodic storytelling. And I probably wouldn't use any of the current writers today. I would intentionally go and get a no-name person and basically tell the comic fans, I'll make you one promise. You come and you buy this, it will count, it will matter, and you will, you're going to get something different. That's what I would do.
It definitely does feel like the writers are a problem. There's still really good artists, but it feels like, especially over at Marvel, there just is a lack of good quality writing. And if they do find a writer, they do spread them immediately as thin as possible.
Yeah, Jed MacKay. There's no reason why Jed MacKay should be on the two biggest books the company has right now simultaneously. You're no matter what he is, no matter how good he is, you're not going to get good results out of that.
But even at Ryan North, he's doing Fantastic Four. He's doing One World Under Doom, their big event, and he's doing a crypto book for DC.
Yeah. I by the way, and no offense to crypto, love the dog. If you are the guy writing the biggest Marvel event of the year and you're writing Fantastic Four, which in theory is going to tie into the biggest Marvel movie of the year, you should be so busy, so wealthy, so wrapped up in your things that you're not doing the crypto dog story. Like that is
Can I take a
absurd.
pass?
I mean, that's an indication that nobody's taking any of this stuff seriously.
Or they're not being paid very well.
Well, that too. But like when Chris Claremont was at height at the X-Men, you didn't have him going over and doing a Jimmy Olsen miniseries at DC.
No, he probably didn't have time. He had to do that Wolverine book.
Well, it would have hurt his brand, quite frankly. It would have looked weird to comic fans as to why the biggest writer in the industry was doing a C-level character.
Yeah, it just feels like this is what is it? Rob Liefeld call it? It's the quotaverse. It's just filling numbers, hypothetical numbers that they've decided they need to fill.
Yeah, which is puzzling why they need to fill that. I mean, especially if you're Marvel and DC, there is nothing in those Disney Warner contracts that says they have to put out this many books. So why exactly is this your why is this your publishing strategy other than this is what historically you think the business needs, and so you're just going to keep running the same play over and over again?